Fueling the political upheaval in South Korea, a court has extended President Yoon Suk-Yeol's detention for up to 20 days. In granting law enforcement's request for an arrest warrant for Yoon, the court said he was a threat and could destroy evidence. Shortly after the court's decision was announced, his supporters swarmed the building, breaking windows and doors before entering, while the police tried to keep them at bay. Despite this, his lawyers said he remains defiant in his refusal to answer questions over the probe. Yoon's Conservative People Power Party has called the court's decision a great pity. Yoon was formally arrested earlier on Sunday, days after being apprehended at his presidential compound in Seoul. He faces possible imprisonment over his short-lived December 3rd declaration of martial law. Yoon and his lawyers on Saturday appeared before the court and argued for his release. We'll first head to our correspondent Aditya Wadwan, who is joining us. Aditya, thank you. Looking at the scenes that we've seen, this isn't the first time there have been protests in South Korea over Yoon's impeachment and his trial and his arrest. But can you describe those scenes for us?
Well, George, so far what we know is that, the supporters of Yoon have, just clashed with the police, the personnel that have been deployed outside the court. There were many supporters of Yoon were arrested by the police, and they were forcibly taken into taken into detention by the South Korean police, by the local police, and they were headed to the local police so far because they tried to vandalize the so-called police barriers outside the courts, because the court has, as you rightly pointed out, the court has extended the custody of the court has extended the custody of Yoon, and so it is very significant, as to what will happen in this case further. This will, so far they have been detained by the police, and it needs to be seen as to by when would the supporters of Yoon be released. Yes, Josh, back to you in the studios.
We're now joined by Shruti Dasgupta, a writer and analyst. Shruti, thank you for joining us. Looking at this extension to Yoon's incarceration, we've got a 20-day period. He's saying that he doesn't want to answer any questions from law enforcement and officials. Do you think we might get to a point where there's a bit of an impasse? And how do you think that Yoon and government officials can get to a point where there is a resolution?
Thank you so much for having me. The point is that the now almost impeached President Yoon is in a very precarious position because his party did not get enough number of seats in the April 2024 elections. So his opposition stands a little bit stronger. He is obviously a very pro-America, pro-Japan person. So he has a very strong geopolitical influence happening for him. But on the other side of this conversation, he faces a lot of discontent in the nation with the rising inflation, etc. So there's not going to be much of a resolution because we see this as a power play happening between the Democratic Party there as well as the PPP. There is going to be a 6-bench judge that is going to be looking into his impeachment. And even if one of them says that there is no just cause for his impeachment, then he does not get impeached. He goes back to power and he goes back to taking care of things that he was taking care of. We need to understand that his entire premise for being impeached and for asking for a martial law was his statement that the Democratic Party, that is, are his opponents, were more focused more soft towards North Korea, and that were his exact words, if I'm not wrong, that they were doing an anti-national kind of activity while they were more in number. So as a result, this is more of a power play as of now. They cannot force a confession out of him. They cannot impeach him just because he's put on martial law. There is a probability. He did, according to his statement, he said that the marshals that he had sent on the day that he declared the martial law into the parliamentary building, they were only to maintain law and order, not to prevent the voting, which happened within 6 hours for the shortest duration of martial law ever in history. So he stands at a very comfortable place. If he does not incriminate himself, as of now, there have been no papers that the many searches that they have tried to incorporate against him. They have not been able to get any incriminating evidence, but it's basically right now at an impasse where anything can happen, but there is not going to be a peaceful resolution to this in the future. Back to you.
We're also joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, a fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us live from Tokyo in Japan. Dr. Nagao, thank you. We've seen on the streets of Seoul, we've seen chaos, we've seen political chaos, but also the impact on the people with protests potentially turning violent. But I want to look at Asia as a whole and the continent. What impact does the impeachment trial, what impact does Yoon's current situation have on the wider region, the political chaos that's going on in Korea? Are there ripple effects being felt elsewhere?
This impact is indeed relatively big, I believe, because currently South Korea's national power is relatively strong and they have strong influence. For example, in case of the Ukraine issue, North Korea sends ammunition to Russia. Instead of this, South Korea has the potential to support Ukraine by providing many ammunition. So that's why the decision of the South Korea affects the international relations. And in case of the Northeast Asia or Indo-Pacific, how to deal with China is a matter of concern, especially under the new US President Trump. So under such kind of situation, if the South Korea cannot decide anything, this is one kind of the power vacuum in the region. That is a concern. So of course the US rely on Japan, but at the same time US rely on the South Korea, but South Korea cannot decide anything. That will affect the cooperation in this region. To how to deal with Russia, how to deal with North Korea, how to deal with China at the same time in the Northeastern Asia, in this case, and how to support Taiwan during the someone deterred North Korea's attack in the Korean Peninsula. In this case, without the South Korea's influence, we cannot deter such kind of the conflict. So that's why Japan is worrying, US is worrying, or Taiwan, the Philippines, or the US side country are worrying, I think.
Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you to Shruti Dasgupta. We will, of course, continue to bring you the latest coming from Korea in the developing story.